Man, oh man, what a day of Champions League action. What a full round of 16, man. Day 2, Barcelona just whipped Newcastle in the early slot. Bayern Munich wrapped things up. Liverpool obviously showed out. And Tottenham put up a little bit of a fight. It's interesting to watch. Let's get into it, man. Let's start with this Barcelona Newcastle game because my goodness. My goodness, Barcelona are immense offensively. And we knew this. And, when you look at this game, especially the first half, this game was open. This game was really open, back and forth, high octane. And you really saw what I thought was the worst and the best of Barcelona throughout this game because this game was so open. Newcastle had so many opportunities. Obviously, those two early Alanga goals. But, that high line, we talk about it and we talk about it. That high line is just, it's a gamble. It feels like a gamble. Is it just me? I think it's a real gamble, guys. I think, when you're facing better teams than Newcastle, and you can argue you've already seen it right with Atleti, that high line is just damn near suicide. You can draw people offside, but once they figure it out, it's a little suspect. So at the same time, that second half kind of disproves all of those worries because who cares about a high line if you can just outscore anybody, right? But I don't know if I'm sure there's an alternative, I feel like, but obviously I know for sure that Hansi Flick isn't budging. Great managers usually are really stubborn. They don't change things, right? And that's not to say they don't adapt, but their philosophy in particular, they don't change. They really stick to it because it's something they believe in, damn near a religion. They believe in that. So Barcelona, good for them to get the win. Obviously, Yamal I think he had an overall great performance. Obviously, he was culpable for that second goal, I believe, for Elanga, because who's trying a backheel pass right outside their box, and it's not even it's like a goal kick or a reset of play in any way. It's you're trying a backheel and it's crowded back there. You know what I mean? It was a very weird decision by Yamal. Not something you're accustomed to seeing him do. He also missed that sitter, absolute sitter, early on in the first half. So yeah, I mean that he had a few mistakes, a few errors, but the way he progressed the ball, those turns for the first goal, I believe for Rafinha, that was him, right? Yeah, he turned. I don't know if it was Malik Chow or maybe one of the midfielders for Newcastle, but had a beautiful turn and slots it through to Rafinha, who slots it through to Fermin. Fermin gives it back to Rafinha, and then Rafinha scores. And it just shows you how you could argue he's the best creator in football. And I mean, maybe that's not a hot take, but there's guys like Cherky, guys like Dembele who I think also can do a lot of that stuff. But he's obviously right up there. Doesn't need to be said. But yeah, man, wonderful performance. I think overall, and obviously scored the penalty. But for Barcelona, I think now you're looking forward, and the way they play, we can go back to it, right? They're so offensively talented. The way they ripped up Newcastle, for Newcastle to take seven, and it's not just Barcelona being great because they were, but I also thought Newcastle played a weird game here because I remember when they played PSG, they didn't necessarily, take this much risk or they weren't this brave, and the occasion's different, right? This is a knockout game, you got to go for it, but I feel like maybe they could have sat back a little bit, been a little less, risky, especially they're going man to man at the back. They were pressing high up with their fullback. It was a little, I don't want to say uncharacteristic, but obviously the result speaks for itself, right? You can see that probably wasn't the best approach because you gave guys like Fermin and Rafinha, guys who can find a quick first time pass, who can run past their marker easily with ease, and you're pressing man to man. That's always going to be a question mark if you don't necessarily have the guys to go man to man with, like Malik Chow. We saw him at Milan. It's crazy how good he's been for Newcastle because he was pretty average at Milan. But guys like that, guys like Dan Burn who can't really run with Lewandowski, when you're asking them to do all that, it's gonna be a long day. But again, credit to Barcelona, man. Lamine Yamal is incredible. Rafinha had an incredible game today. Loved Rafinha's game. He's getting back to that last season form. And yeah, I mean, you can't really ask for much more if you're Barcelona. Sure, you'll concede two with that high line, but if you can score seven, then what's the point, right? So yeah, now we can talk about what's coming up for them. I think in a separate section of the video, but they should be very happy with this win, man. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and we'll talk also about the English teams, but at the end of the day, between these two teams in particular, the skill gap, the quality gap was always going to be there. Right? It's no question for me, man. Barcelona just have a better squad. And, when it comes to UCL, when it comes to European football nights, usually that's what takes you over the line. Speaking of better squads today, Bayern Munich, man. Possibly the best squad in Europe. Possibly. Bayern Munich taking care of Atalanta today. I'm not going to act like I watched this game because obviously the result was tied up in the first leg. But good for them just to get this and wrap this up. I'm not going to speak too much into depth about this. They had a rotated lineup too, which I think is really great for them to keep their guys fresh. They didn't have to play guys like Olise. They didn't have to play Musiala or Nabry. I don't think Musiala's got a knock. I'm not sure. But, it's nice to see Luis Diaz, get some GA. Because I think he didn't get one in the first round or in the first leg. And, it's tough to be like your team scores six and you're an attacker and you don't get one. That's a little rough. Harry Kane's obviously back. And yeah, I remember, I think Bayern had like a goalkeeper situation, right? All their goalkeepers were injured. But I think they called up this goalkeeper, even though he's a little injured, to play. Because otherwise they wouldn't have had a goalkeeper, right? They would have had to play that academy goalkeeper, which is kind of funny. But yeah, a bunch of guys got a lot of rest. They got to rotate guys. I mean, I don't even recognize some of these names. Maybe these are academy guys who got some, UCL debuts, which is pretty cool, especially to debut in the knockouts. But yeah, I mean, Upamecano didn't even play. So, Bayern are in a great spot right now. And obviously they've got that impending knockout versus Real Madrid. And we'll talk about that later on in the video. But very professional win from Bayern. And we're going to move to Tottenham and Atleti because this game was kind of interesting in the fact that Tottenham showed some fight. And I got to hand it to Spurs. And the bar is low. The bar is very low. But I believe, with Arsenal, I guess, they're the only other English team to... Oh, no, I forgot about Liverpool. But, they showed out for the English teams just a little bit by, showing some backbone at home. Now, to their discredit or credit, however you want to talk about it, Atleti definitely played, the objective. I feel, like a little bit of second gear from Atleti, in my opinion. They know you're up. When you're up three, it's hard to necessarily play like you're not up three, if that makes sense. And yeah, so for Spurs, to come back into it a little bit, to get into it, I guess it was always going to be 2 goal deficit that they got closest with. But I mean, there was chances for them in this game, half-hearted chances, but chances nonetheless. And you got to hand it to them. They didn't totally just give up. It's nice for them in particular because showing this kind of fighting spirit, you know, even though you lost by 3, to still come home and show out for your fans, to come home and win a leg, even though you lost the tie, and not only win a leg, but this is the first time in a while like that Spurs win at home, right? Like they've only got 2 or 3 wins in the Premier League, so they haven't won often at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So this is big for them, just in the sense of for their fans to get that W. I think it'll bode well for them in the future. As far as competing against relegation in the Premier League, the heights that your squad can reach now. You know what your squad can do, and at the end of the day, performance will generally carry over more than results, right? If you play bad but you win a lot, eventually that's going to come to bite you. But if you play good, even though you lose, you know, that usually lasts and is more sustainable. So I think for Tottenham, having a good performance, which I think objectively they had a good performance. The guys, the players out there looked interested. They looked, proud to they looked, to fight for the badge, proud of the kit they wear. That's gonna be sustainable. So if they can keep that going, they can stay up. And it's funny, that we're even talking about them staying up, right? But this is where we're at with them now, and you can only blame their board for that. But hey, let's not be all down. Good for Tottenham to get a little win. Yeah, I mean, Atleti, they really only have to play the objective. They'll forget about this game by next week, in my opinion. It's just, you know, it's just a situation, right? They only had to qualify. You qualified. Nothing else matters. It really doesn't matter how you qualify. I was talking about it yesterday. I felt PSG could have scored more, but PSG winning 8-2 or PSG winning a 10-2 doesn't make them go another round further. Like, you know what I mean? You still go to the quarterfinals and that's it. So at the end of the day, play the objective, you qualify. Onto the quarterfinals against Barcelona. What a cracking tie that'll be. But let's close out this recap with Liverpool Galatasaray. And man, I feel like everyone could have saw this coming, huh? I mean, I feel like you've got to be incredibly delusional not to see this coming, or a diehard Galatasaray fan. Because even if you were a diehard Galatasaray fan, I mean, when you saw Galatasaray's performance against Juventus in the playoffs, away to a 10-man Juventus and still losing, I mean, you know, what else could you expect? I don't even think they lost that game, actually. I was like, did they lose that game? They ended up, okay, yeah, they did lose that game, but they won the tie. And I went to extra time, right? And Juventus had 10 men. It was a very poor performance from Galatasaray in that. And a very bad Juventus team, if we're gonna be honest, right? Like, relatively speaking, for standards of Juve, very bad team this year. Right? They're not top four in the Serie A, and you're still losing to them as Galatasaray when they have a man down. Like, it's ridiculous. So, it was good for them to get that win in the first leg. It was really crucial for them to get a multiple goal win. I never thought one goal was going to be enough. 2 goals, might have had a chance, might have. 3 goals, okay, now you're in it, but you'd still need something more. It's Anfield, and like I mentioned before, between Barcelona and Newcastle, there's just a squad gap between these two squads. You take a look at these two squads. Like, even though Liverpool have been very uninspiring, if you're playing at your best, if these players are playing at their best, you're gonna take Liverpool's squad man for man. All right. Even if Liverpool's squad is playing above average, like, Supposedly obviously had a nice goal today, but you're gonna take him over anybody in midfield for Galatasaray. Even though Yilmaz is spectacular, I think he might be getting a move soon. I'm not sure, but I'd love to see him, on a elite team. I'm not trying to be a football elitist. I like when elite players are spread out too, but if he wants to chase trophies, I'm not against it. You feel me? But yeah, like at the back, Singo, who's pretty okay for Monaco, but you can see, Monaco sold him for a reason. They were good. I can attest to that. Obviously, Wout Fez is not necessarily better than Singo, but you get the point, right? And like, you take Konate, you take Van Dijk over these guys. So, like, the talent gap is just incredible. It's just Osimhen who could really compete. And unfortunately for Galatasaray, Osimhen getting hurt early on. I think he got like a fractured bone in his hand. Like, I want to say Konate need him, like, accidentally. It wasn't on purpose, but Konate, followed him in, and then his knee or something hit his wrist, and Osimhen was just basically useless from there, because as a striker, you need your hand to move, make space, ride challenges, occupy center backs. Like, it's tough to play with a hurt hand. So, even though, yeah, it's like you use your feet in this game, your hand is important too. What you do with your upper body matters so much. And Yeah, Osimhen was basically useless for the after that. So basically, his entire time there, they had to sub him off. I think they subbed him off for Sane and Noah Lang. And Noah Lang ended up getting subbed off early, but I turned off the game after the fourth goal. So yeah, I mean Liverpool just kind of steamrolled them from the halftime break, man. Galatasaray just had no chance. Like I just I just look back to that first leg and I think, man, Galatasaray really should have went harder because you knew it was going to be hard at Anfield. And it's tough. I hate to bring this up because it's not super objective. But here's the thing, like when you're a club like Galatasaray, or a club who's big in their country, but you're historically smaller than like a Liverpool, right? You're not the biggest of clubs. You're not a tier club, right? So it's like they're gonna have more belief in beating you. I also think, like, not the players per se, but definitely the fans, right? So it's like sometimes you have to take that into account and be like, you got to set up better. Galatasaray were kind of pressing a little bit, but you left yourself vulnerable at times in the back, and Liverpool could get in behind, and not only get in behind, but there was like just acres of space between the defensive line and midfield, and guys were just roaming in there for Liverpool, finding immense joy, like pockets of freedom in there. And yeah, just a wealth of gap between the two. Unfortunately for Galatasaray, this is the end for them. But hey, it's good. Like I think making knockouts is really like good for a club like Galatasaray, and I don't want to cap them, but like I don't know what it's gonna take for them to get over the line because it's tough. Like you have to attract people to come play in Istanbul, and playing in a Turkish league, it's always going to be a little bit tougher. It's not like playing for example, for PSG, right? Because Ligue 1 is still a top five league. You still have 3, 4 UCL spots. Still have a lot of prestigious worldwide known clubs. Turkey, it's like you do have the top three, but it doesn't have the same reputation. It's not the same, it's more for like I hate to say it, but like for like older players who are ending their career, right? When Galatasaray was up against Madrid way back when, it was Drogba and Snyder at the end of their careers, and like you think of like recently, like Immobile was playing for Besiktas, who I think Immobile is playing for PFC now, but like it's just very, retirement league esque, right? And it's tough. So I don't know what it's gonna take for him to get over the line. You're gonna have to invest in some more, I guess, younger talent, but also like your academy and things like that. Like it's gonna be tough, man. Because I'd love to see a team like Galatasaray maybe get over the line for once and get into those semifinals. And I know they did it way, way, way back in like 2000 or 2001. But like it shouldn't be in every. I guess it's past 25 years now, but I think there's potential because they've got the fan base, as far as they've got the stadium. They're big enough in their country, right? So like I don't know what it's gonna take, but big up Liverpool, man. Not much else to say. We kind of knew this was always gonna happen, but good for Liverpool in particular for the confidence it gave them because obviously they've looked very uninspiring, very within themselves, inside of themselves, and then today it felt like they just released a lot of whatever was holding them back. And even though they're considerably better than Galatasaray is not the toughest opponent at all. When you can do that, when you can build confidence as a team, that can really take you to the next level, regardless of the opponent. And that's what happened today. I think, you know, Liverpool for so long being so uninspiring to have this emotional release that can change their entire season. Now, if they play, if they play like this, even though they'll face tougher opposition, they're gonna be a team to be reckoned with. They're gonna be a scary team. You got to be careful with this team, man. They look kind of scary today. I'm not gonna lie to you, as a PSG fan, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit nervous, but that's all the UCL matches. Now we can take a look at the knockouts because my goodness, juicy quarterfinals here. Obviously, lots of big clubs. I mean, my gosh, man. My gosh, look at that. That's just a nice screenshot to have, you know what I mean? But let's take a look. All right, we can start with PSG and Liverpool. This tie last year, absolute cinema. And I expect nothing less. I actually want the lighting back on me. I expect nothing less. Okay? The tie last year, my goodness, what a tie. It was the highest level of football played in my opinion last year. Right? You can talk about the Barcelona Inter tie, but I think that game was really open and you kind of lost as far as, footballing systems and tactics. I think that kind of got lost a little bit, right? Because that game was just so open, right? But that PSG Liverpool tie last year, my goodness, those teams played incredible football, and obviously PSG dominated a large part of that tie. But the technical quality in that tie was immaculate. Go watch it back. Just watch the highlights back, man. That second leg in particular, whew, what a game. What a game. This year, I expect more of the same, but I don't think it'll be that quality. It'll be interesting, especially because Liverpool have obviously retooled their squad a bit, and I see Ekatike and the PSG curse of having ex PSG players score on you when you meet them again with their other team. It's just like I expect that to happen. I'm Ekatike 2 GA in this tie probably, but yeah, man, this tie is very juicy, especially if Liverpool are feeling back to themselves or, reaching a little bit of their potential. My gosh. My gosh. Salah Nuno Mendes meet up once again. I mean, the matchups all over the pitch. You know, João Neves, Vitinha meeting up with Gravenberch and McAllister. That's going to be immense to watch. Barcola, unfortunately, is out. So it's going to be Due and Kavara versus Frimpong and Kirkez. And we'll see how that goes because, before Liverpool had Trent, who is great going forward. And that's not to say Frimpong isn't, but Frimpong, he's got the pace, to keep up with the Kavara, to keep up with the Due. So we'll see how that goes. And obviously Dembele isn't necessarily in red hot form, but he caused problems to Konate and Van Dijk and obviously scored last time around. So yeah, Slot Enrique, it'll be very interesting. And you know how much Slot loves to talk about PSG. So we will be there. We will be there to witness all of that. I'm very excited for this tie. And if any PSG fan is underestimating this Liverpool side, do not, because they still have talent. And if I'm being honest, from a glance, this team, we play into their hands just a bit because we're gonna press, we're gonna give them space. Guys like Salah are gonna have opportunities to run. Guys like Gakpo, Gakpo's still a decent left winger, right? Guys like Ekatike are gonna be able to run against a Marquinhos who doesn't have as much pace. So we're gonna have to be really careful. But yeah, it'll be a very fun tie. I'm looking forward to it for sure. Another tie that we definitely know and looking forward to, man. This is Champions League heritage. Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. Okay, I hate to do this because I did this to Madrid in the round of 16. I thought City was going to walk over them. But if City doesn't walk over them, I know for sure Bayern is going to eat them for lunch, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a snack. I mean, look, Madrid, they set up well. Arbeloa set them up well. What I'm scared about for Madrid, and this is a valid fear. This is what I'm scared about for Madrid, okay? When you fold back in Jude, and not even Jude, I don't even think Jude's the problem. I think if you fold Mbappe back in to this team, they are not going to be the same. They're not going to give you the same performance against City. I think you're better off doing the exact same thing you did against City, and maybe you add in Jude Bellingham. That's the same way you beat Bayern 2 years ago, right? In the semifinals. That's how you get it done. You bring in Mbappe, Bayern's gonna outpower you and overpower you in every metric possible. Even if you set up the way you set up against City, they still will overpower you. but at least I think you'll have more of a chance because Bayern will leave you, spacing behind, right? That's what the top teams do because they dominate you so much. You're automatically going to have spacing behind. It's just about, can you soak up enough pressure to not concede, and then have enough, clinicality to convert on the other end, and that's what Madrid is about, right? So that's what they're going to have to do. I don't think they can do this with Mbappe. I really don't. I think Mbappe is Patrick Ewing. I think he just, obviously he's the lowest. He's one of the lowest pressing players in Europe. So total non-factor defensively, which is fine if it's just him, but because of where he plays, it hinders Vinny, and it just, the balance is lost. And I think you need a balanced squad if you want to beat Bayern. So that's what I would go with. We'll see what happens. So that's just my early prediction. I still think Bayern, Diaz, my God, Diaz, Musiala. I think Musiala will be back. Gnabry, Kane, even Nicholas Jackson's gonna find joy against that Madrid defense, in my opinion. Right? And that's just attacking. Right? That doesn't bring up guys like Bischoff and Leimer, who are great utility players. Right? Like it's, and then Kimmich and Pavlovic in midfield. I I don't know, man. I think what Vincent Company has these guys doing, this is minimum semifinal team. I mean, this is, we're talking about one of the best teams in Europe. Like this is, and they've been all season long, man. We're talking about a team that's scoring at insane rates, right? One of the offenses of our generation, right? We're gonna look back in 10 years and we're gonna talk about Company's Bayern. That's what we're gonna talk about. Like this is one of the offenses of our generation. I don't think Madrid can compete. Give me Bayern all day. But this is not an official prediction, just a first look, early look at things. And then we can talk about Barcelona and Atletico de Madrid. This one, obviously, the Copa del Rey has given us a bit of a preview of this. But after what Barcelona did, give me Barcelona for this. Am I tripping? I think Barcelona have this one in the bag. I mean, this is a Champions League, of course, and all that. But and one thing that's interesting with this one is Barcelona will have the first leg at home, so we'll see how that goes. But I don't even think that'll matter. I think this Barcelona team is just way, way too good, man. I think if they just don't concede stupid goals, they'll be fine. And I honestly don't think they'll concede stupid goals. They'll concede opportunities. I think Atleti will get in behind, but the quality of Barcelona, man, it's just incredible. Rafinha like that, Lewandowski playing like that, Vermeer playing like that, and they'll have revenge on their mind too. I think that'll play a part of it. We'll see, but I think Barcelona to the semifinals. And then lastly, Arsenal Sporting. I don't think I have to go into depth about this one. Arsenal should be walking Sporting. They're too solid defensively. Gyökeres scoring back on his old team will be fun to see, but I think Gyökeres especially will play a big part. I think he's been really growing into Arsenal over the last few weeks, and as part of the team there, and as becoming a, not necessarily the star, the superstar nine who's scoring 30 goals, but he's doing just enough, right? Allowing his wingers to shine, and yeah, I think even though Arsenal haven't looked particularly threatening or fear-inducing, since offensively speaking for the last however many weeks, I think they have enough to beat Sporting. Sporting will make it tough, but at the end of the day, return leg back in London. There's no way. There's no way. I don't see it happening. And honestly, if we're talking semifinals here, early semifinal predictions, I'd love to see PSG, Bayern, Barcelona, Arsenal. I think those are by far the top four teams throughout the whole season. Those were the top four teams, right? So it just make a lot of sense to me. And it's nice it doesn't always happen, but it's nice when the UCL reflects like the top teams of the season. Last year it did. 2 years ago, not really, because Dortmund was in there, and obviously Dortmund got to the final, but Dortmund was not the top team. City should have been in there or something like that, and obviously that was before the new format. But these are definitely the top four teams. I think most people would agree with you, right? Some order of PSG, Bayern, Barcelona, Arsenal, for sure. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but I'm very excited. These quarterfinals will be juicy. And we only got to wait like 2 or 3 weeks, right? So it's not that long. So speaking of not that long, I'll be back before you know it. Ain't that right? But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a wonderful round of 16 of Champions League. Cannot wait for the quarterfinals. Until next time, it's been your boy, Ollie Footy. We